Hello and welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And this is season, whatever it is, 7, episode 285 of the CreepGeeks Podcast.
Oppenheimer, Amulets, Talismans, and Surviving Animal Attacks.
Part 2.
Yes.
That means 2. All right, so anyway, it begins. We're going to roll back into the podcast. We got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today, as we do every time we have the CreepGeeks Podcast, which is mostly weekly, roughly, give or take a little bit, because that's the way society is these days. Mostly weekly, give or take a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, as we talk about stuff in the podcast, it's important for you to be aware. If it's your very first time listening to the podcast, we talk about all sorts of stuff that we find to be interesting.
Okay.
It's not really not that important to be aware. But now, if you decide that you have something interesting in which you'd like to share, whether you listen to the podcast for the first time or if you're a repeat listener, we do have a telephone number that you can call and leave a voicemail. No pressure.
That voicemail phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah. So it's absolutely free. If you leave a message and you don't say otherwise, we're more than likely about 88% sure we're going to stick it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And what we do, it's a very difficult process. It's just basically we right-click, save it, and throw it into the podcast, pretty much. Well, unless it's like got a lot of noise and stuff, and then we'll turn around and do some cleaning up, if you will. So, yeah. And by the way, if you're not a Patreon member, you can certainly become one. There's a link that you can click to do that, and we have some amazing patrons out there, and we do appreciate them. As a matter of fact, we have a series that's basically just going to start running over on Patreon, where one of our patrons called in and has been sharing some instances of events and things that he wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So I hope he knows that because we're putting it over there. But no, he's got some interesting things. And just to kind of set it up, his name is Dave. And I don't know what to call the segment, so it's going to be called Dave's Dusty Drive.
Oh.
Well, he makes a road trip, man, where he travels pretty fair distance from one place to the other in the Great Southwest. Yeah. And what better? And we've made that ride kind of like last time we were there, went to Tombstone and stuff like that. So he's just got some things to say, and he's like, "I'm going to take this time where I'm trapped in my vehicle for about an hour and 45 minutes or whatever it is to call."
Gosh.
And I'm like, I'm all for it, man. Yeah. So we figure we'd play them first, and then they'll work their way over to this particular podcast. So anyway, if you're interested, you should certainly check out the link that we have provided in our show notes, where everything we talk about is in our show notes, or you can do our other social media presences like Facebook, and you can jump in anytime.
We have official Facebook page, and we also have a Facebook group. Yes. Facebook group's a great place to share ideas, show suggestions, or even a story that you might want to share with others or have a discussion about. We have a fairly active Instagram. We also have a TikTok, and feel free to follow us on those.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Threads. And if you want to listen to this podcast and you don't want to listen to it in a podcast player, you can certainly use YouTube, because we make our podcast available there. It is hashtag listable, and it's also listed as a podcast, so you can basically set it and forget it and go cut the grass or do whatever it is you got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, our last podcast, we kind of talked about a couple different things involving animals, and we're going to continue that with this particular podcast, but we thought we'd sort of jump into the bandwagon when it comes Oppenheimer, because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
And Oppenheimer is, so it's a movie, right? And basically it's about, the whole thing is about the atomic bomb and the atomic bomb that got dropped, right? In World War II, Fat Man, Little Boy, and the process that took basically for the USA to capitalize on this, to be able to utilize. So here's the thing. I don't think a lot of people, they probably do now. It's kind of hard to say. But anyway, a lot of people probably don't realize that we dropped the atomic bomb, quote unquote, first. Mm-hmm. And we did it in an act of war. Mm-hmm. And that sort of set the stage for the atomic age, if you will. We weren't the only ones. The Russians were working with atomic weaponry, and there was the idea that they had probably been detonating weapons first, atomic weapons. And they got it from the Germans just like we did, I think through Operation Paperclip and some other stuff that we had going on. So as far as us being first, we weren't the first, I don't think, to actually test and explode and detonate an atomic weapon. But we were the first to utilize it in war.
Yeah.
And we did it twice with 2 bombs, Fat Man and Little Boy, over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I think.
And basically Oppenheimer, the movie that's in theaters right now, it discusses or it explores that journey that Oppenheimer took as he continued to work on the allegedly top secret Manhattan Project, as he led those scientists into developing and designing that atomic bomb. When their work comes to fruition in 1945, they witness the first nuclear explosion, forever changing the course of history. That's the overview of the movie.
Yeah. No mention of prolonged nudity?
No.
That seems to be the big thing with this movie.
You know, I keep getting overrun because my algorithm's all weird, my social media. So it's constantly Oppenheimer versus Barbie memes.
Yeah, well, they're doing that now.
Yeah.
And I think both movies in the end are probably worth watching in their own right.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, the reason why we put Oppenheimer in the podcast, because in full disclosure, we have not gone to see the movie.
No, not yet.
And I don't know if we will go and see the movie. It kind of depends. It's a big commitment these days for us to drive the 40 miles to go see a movie.
Yeah. And while I like historical movies for the most part, and this is a subject I'm interested in, the overwhelming memes and theme I'm seeing online is, this is boring. And I'm like, well, it's history.
History sucks, man. It's boring.
So.
But I get it. Yeah. I think I'd be interested in it. And so we should probably go to a time where there's not people there that are bored.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. But okay, so let me tell you why we put this in the podcast. So Omi and I used to live in New Mexico, and we did travels, and we did all sorts of stuff, and eventually led to us doing the CreepGeeks Podcast, and we take our camper van and run around and do things. And we had one camper van first called the Great White Buffalo, and the second one was called the Albino Rhino. One of the places we went, and this is, what do we call it? BP before pandemic or whatever.
Yeah.
We actually went out to the Trinity site in New Mexico, which is basically on the White Sands Missile Testing Range, which grew exponentially in size after the atomic bomb drop.
Yeah.
Or test. And you can go to what they call the Trinity site, and it's the site where they tested these atomic weapons. Now, the thing about the White Sands Missile Testing Range and base that's there, you are not allowed to go. You can't just show up and take a tour.
Yeah.
You just can't. It's where they test weapons and stuff like that. So it is a fully functioning military type installation, and you're not just going to get on there. However, twice a year, they do allow access.
Yes.
And the access typically comes not on the actual anniversary date of the atomic bomb drop, because that is so hot of a time to be there. It's unnecessarily hot. It's a danger.
Yeah, July 16th is literally one of the hottest days in south central New Mexico.
Yeah. And it's hot. And even though it's a dry heat, it's still incredibly hot.
110
and
plus.
You're in the desert, and there's a reason why they picked this spot to drop the atomic weapon to test. Now, the thing about this is that they do open this up for you to be able to go and check it out. Typically, it used to be, it may change because of the pandemic or whatever, but it might go back the way it was because of Oppenheimer and the success of the movie so far. The first weekend in April and the first or last weekend in October.
Second weekend?
It depends.
It used to be.
It changes, but it used to be, like Omi was saying, the second week in October. Now, of course, the best time to go is either before it's hot or when it's not hot, and that's April and October.
I wanted to add there, the reason that it used to be a floating date around October was because New Mexico is a great place to go in early October. You have the International Balloon Fiesta.
Yeah.
You have 2 different festivals on native land in October, and you have the Trinity site. So you could go and see life-changing, like 4 or 5 different life-changing things in October just by going to New Mexico. I mean, there was even an art tour we did one year because it was closer to September, October.
Yeah.
I think,
It was like free admission. So we actually went and we pulled into the base, and there's a line, and there'll be a long line. And basically when you get in there, and it's talking to a guy from Texas and all this stuff. And he was a nice guy. He had driven right to be there. Yeah. And one of the things that came up, because he just got out of the military, was, and this was a question he asked me, and I remembered this question. He's like, do you think they search cars for contraband? And I was not alarmed, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I bet they do. I said, but I bet with this weekend being a visit weekend, they only do it if they see it. Mm-hmm. Because when I was in the Navy, one of my jobs that I had to do for my duty was basically being like a base cop, right? We called it security. And so for visit days, it was just kind of a rule that we didn't go digging for stuff, but if we seen it, we were going to take care of it.
Out of sight. Yeah. Policy.
Yeah, we didn't go looking for it. But if you got up on your dash, then we got to do something about it. So in other words, if you make it obvious, and I'm like, I bet that's what they're doing. And so as we started to pull up, there was an Amnesty trash can. And there was stuff in it.
Yeah.
You know, and because they give you a spiel. You know, you could take this road, do not deviate from this road after they check your ID and all that stuff. Make sure, I guess you're a real person, whatever, right? Take this road, do not deviate from this road. This is the route, do not deviate. And basically, don't stop. Don't take pictures. Don't do anything. You're only allowed to take pictures at the Trinity site and the parking lot, and that's it. No photography of any kind or videography. And so you're on the base, and it's that you can take pictures at the historical site, but nothing else. Everything is classified. If we catch you taking pictures, we will take your camera.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize when it comes to national security and things like that, they're going to take your camera and you're not going to get it back. It's not like, hey, man, freedom of speech. That does not apply when it comes to national security.
Yeah.
And I get it because there are spies about. So we got to go and we went, and not giving away a whole lot. Is number one, it was absolutely worth the trip. Number two, it's pet friendly. You can bring a dog. Number three, they had ambulance, fire, and health and safety stuff ready to go in case you fell out because it was hot.
Yeah.
Number four, they actually had little tram cart things that would pick you up and take you. So if you had like a wheelchair or had, you know, problems with mobility, because it's a little bit of a long walk from the parking lot, they would pick you up and take you. Right?
Yeah.
And number five, I think they had a place to get drinks.
There was.
Or they gave water out or something. I don't remember exactly
It
because we were
was,
prepared.
as supplies are limited, there was a place for water. And the next to it or near it were these little info tents where you could see the glass that was made from the nuclear explosion.
And what's that called?
Is it fulgurite?
Nope, it's called trinorite.
Trinorite. Yeah, fulgurite is lightning.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's illegal to take trinonite from the site.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be. It is now. They'll get you if you do.
It is a federal crime to take trinonite or white sand from White Sands Missile Range and White Sands National Park.
Yeah, so if you happen to go and do both of these, which you can do in a day, you definitely want to make sure that if you're going to abscond with stuff, you be discreet about it. Not saying steal the selenium.
Yeah, or gypsum.
Yeah. Or gypsum more than selenium. But.
And so the little info places, they have examples of the glass that was created. They have examples and soil samples of different things. A lot of interesting stuff. They have like the metal, some of the metal from
like the casing and things like that.
From the casing, and you can run like the radiation detector over
Do you mean Geiger counter?
Yeah. So, but really cool. Completely worth it.
Yeah, and there's experts there that will talk to you in great and agonizing detail about everything that you do want to know or not want to know about it.
Yeah.
But the fact is that you can go, and like us, you can stand on the site that exploded the first, let's just call it the first atomic bomb on American soil, right? You can stand right there. And they have a monument, and people go up and get their picture taken with the monument because they think the monument is where the bomb detonated. But it's really not. You can basically look on the ground and you'll see like a cement pad with a little piece of iron pipe sticking up. And that was the
little piece of rebar.
The little thing that held up the other thing that they hoisted the bomb up with. I don't know what that's called. You know, it's like a little tower, and they hoist the bomb from it, and he just dropped it.
It was like a silo type.
No, it's a scaffolding kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm not a bomb dropping expert.
Where the monument is just where they were physically able to erect the monument because, putting up monuments is a hard task.
As a matter of fact, where you go to stand and take a picture is where the bomb actually.
Yeah. So the little pile of rebar that you see, that's actually that's the spot.
Yeah, where the scaffolding, the tower that held the bomb up. So anyway, it's a great place, and we went, and there is no other place you can go, really, if you think about it, for free, and stand there on the spot that actually changed the course of history in modern times, because people don't probably think about it, but that changed everything. That's where basically the ended World War II, started the Cold War. Everybody on the planet was affected with the whole atomic age right there at that particular time, all because of Oppenheimer and his team. And he's like, I am the destroyer of worlds, kind of a thing. And think about it. It's a pretty lofty responsibility to think that, hey, drop this atomic bomb. If it doesn't incinerate the atmosphere and kill us all, it will change everything. And allegedly, with the atomic bomb going off, that's when we became aware, or became the aliens out there or whatever, became aware that we existed. Then in Star Trek universe, it's like the first time you fire up your warp drive, people go, oh, you're warp capable. We can now invite you into the club.
So depending on whatever sci-fi genre you follow or community you follow, there's like criteria. Communication sent to space, the first atomic technology.
Check.
And then warp drive.
We don't have that one yet, although they say it's theoretically possible.
Yeah.
But, when I hear that, I'm like, everything is theoretically possible.
Yeah.
If you work it out with the numbers, you can make anything happen. So,
part of the whole putting some stuff about Oppenheimer in this podcast episode, one of the things we have to stress is, yes, it's open 2 times, April and October. There is a limited amount of people allowed in. And this year, since we are way post-pandemic, White Sands Missile Range did update their website.
Yeah.
And it's a very basic, very simple website. There's no way you can say you did not read this.
Yeah, it's
It's
Army
literally
print.
in red and white in big bold print. And it says, due to the release of the movie Oppenheimer in July, we are expecting a larger than normal crowd at the 21st October open house. You may experience wait times of up to 2 hours getting onto the site. If you are not one of the first 5,000 visitors, you may not get through the gate prior to its closure at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Now, that 2 p.m. rule has always been in place, right?
Yeah, well, we were there.
Like,
it was 2 p.m., and it took them, they want to make sure that the whole thing actually shut at 4, but they closed the gates at 2, and then they made sure everybody was gone by like right after 4, because we straggled till the last minute, and we were off the base in like 8 minutes because they were just rolling us out.
They were like, go, get out, go. And on your way out, that's the other thing. Make sure you give yourself ample time to leave, because as you traverse out, there are buildings that you can observe. Don't be taking pictures, but there's some of the original buildings still towards the exit of as you leave White Sands.
It's still definitely a base.
Yeah. So. And those are some of the buildings that have been there since the Manhattan Project, I think. Like 2 of them were. But, yeah. 5,000, it sounds like they upped the number. I don't know.
No.
But it's only 5,000 people, y'all. So.
And they tell you straight up, like it's pretty cut and dry on how to do it. So if you get on the internet and look, you can definitely see how to actually get to the gate. But just keep in mind, this is a federal installation. It is a military installation. If you decide to go and you have any unmentionables or questionables, don't bring them. Okay?
Yeah.
So, the amnesty trash can may or may not be there, but they're pretty straight up. And so they, here's what they also have listed this time, which is a change from the last time we went. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we are unable to provide handicap transportation from the parking lot to ground zero for those who cannot make the quarter-mile walk.
Yeah.
Last time, that was the trams. They actually had like vans and stuff to take handicapped people.
Did you see the other additional new update?
No.
Site access Alamogordo Caravan Stallion Gate. Due to the annual increase in the number of visitors to the Trinity site, the Alamogordo Caravan is only open to the first 125 vehicles. The limit is necessary to maintain a safe environment en route to Trinity site. So once you're at the site, you must leave through the Stallion Gate at your convenience. There is no caravan back to the Tularosa High School football field parking lot.
Yeah. And there are no bathrooms or special stops along the route to and from the Trinity site. Once you're on, they're taking you straight there and straight back. That's it.
They make it very clear. They will come get you if you try to pull over for whatever supposed reason.
And this is military stuff, so they start on time. And end on time. And they do not care if you were there or not.
Now, if you are a well-known YouTube influencer and you consider yourself a member of the press, that does not matter. You will still need, moving forward, to register for the event with the Public Affairs Office of, Trinity.
Yeah, they do not care. You may be amazing, But to the military, you don't exist until you
Register.
fill out some stuff, and then you exist. So anyway, there you go. We thought you'd like to know that, and that's the reason why we put the Oppenheimer stuff in there, because literally you can go for free and stand on a place that changed history and take little stupid selfies and stuff.
Yeah.
And we did. It was great. Brought in 2 dogs, and it was the only time I've ever seen my dogs act crazy. The first was Pepper in a backpack trying to bite an old lady because the old lady was reaching for your backpack, and so she defended you. And then Ben, our larger, other super cool dog, who was basically standing shoulder height to people, giving people full-blown hugs. He would just pop up, put his paws on their shoulders. I turned around. I'm like, what is he doing? And he did it to a bunch of people. I was like, why are you doing this?
There was that kid, and I guess he was visiting New Mexico with his friends. He's like, can I just get a selfie with your dog? He's
and Ben's like, here you go, and put my paws on your shoulder. It was weird, but it was still a good time. It was worth going. So if you have the opportunity to go and you're out in New Mexico or traveling the Southwest in October, which is a popular time because it's not so hot, you should certainly put it on the list.
Yeah.
Because eventually they may just decide to close this town and never do it again. So, I mean, they can. Yeah, no, they certainly can.
I've been starting to look at some of the older books and reference guides for some places, and I'm noticing places are being shut down.
Yep.
Because of over visiting.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
We all know it's really money. Because if you keep saying everybody's broke, everybody's poor, there's a recession, there's inflation, whatever, eventually people believe it whether it's true or not.
Well, apparently part of Max Patch, which is on the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's a beautiful destination. Thousands of travel, wedding, destination blogs and entities have written about it.
Well, that's because of the pandemic.
But people have overvisited it to the point where they've trampled and destroyed the terrain,
That's because they're dirtbags and they don't pick up after themselves too. Nobody cares. So let's move on into the podcast some more, right?
Yeah.
So talismans. What's a talisman? What do you know?
Just put me on the spot.
I just blasted you. Okay, so do you want to know? We have a link to a website that basically is shondaland.com. And we've talked about talismans in the past, but it was suggested to us that we should try to talk about them again. And we actually found this website, which seems to be a little bit better than what we've seen before. Right? I mean, you were like, we have already talked about that. And I'm like, well, check out the link. And you're like, all right, this is better than what we've seen before. And it also has the ability in the podcast for us to tell you how you can create your own talisman.
Yeah. Now, the words amulet and talisman, they seem to be interchangeable in common language all over social media and the internet, but they're not. An amulet, that's believed to have the power to ward off things, whereas a talisman is the opposite. So a talisman is believed to give more power or more intention towards something for the person wearing it. Yes. So whereas an amulet would be like an evil eye bracelet to ward off, evil intentions, a talisman would be something like a lucky clover leaf or a little horseshoe charm or something like that. The intent is to bring luck to the person wearing it. So both of these quantify under imbued.
Well, just make it easy. One's for power and one's for protection.
Not always. I mean, you can give somebody
Okay, just make it general. I mean, let's not try to break it down in every specific type because it depends on the intention, right?
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is that this is one of those things where anything can become a talisman or an amulet depending on how you want to use it.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying we could spend forever talking about it. I don't think that we should go that deep into it in a way that I think that a lot of people, much in the same way they would make a Ouija board or use a Ouija board, is not going to give this the credence that it's deserved. You know what I mean?
It's an imbued object that you wear.
Right, but that's what I'm trying to say is that if they don't take it seriously, and they may or may not cause issues.
Okay.
Just like Ouija boards.
Okay.
To a certain degree. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Well, I mean, think about that one time we bought all this powerful rock stuff, and we couldn't even get to the car with all the terrible crap happening. And what we were going to use it for was what? We were going to do exactly this. Let's make talismans and amulets and stuff. It's going to be amazing. And I don't even remember what that stuff was called. Couldn't even get to the car.
Yeah.
8 bad luck things happened in the span of 1,000 feet?
So
it was like, this stuff is not coming with us.
It was shungite.
Yes.
And what we didn't know is that, and this is from advice, not from us, this is coming from others telling us, shungite, which is supposed to help relieve pain and improve and balance energy levels and help protect against nightmares in some traditions. We didn't know that some people insist that you need to buy shungite in pairs. And we just got one big, huge chunk of shungite that we were going to break up and use into different things.
Yes.
Well, that one huge chunk caused us so many problems.
Yes.
As soon as we traded with somebody else, we traded some swag from the CreepGeeks podcast table for this piece of shungite and something else.
Did you notice how happy the dude was to make the trade?
Yeah.
Wasn't apparent then, became apparent afterward.
And I thought we got a deal, too, because I was like, we only gave him so much stuff. We should give him more. We stopped making sales at the convention.
Yeah, it was weird.
We made no more sales. We tried to pack up our gear. One of our buddies left his gear at the event.
Yeah. All of our stuff got destroyed.
Yeah, some of our stuff tipped over, even though it shouldn't have.
It was weird. It was a weird thing. And the thing is that we were going to basically make an amulet or a talisman, depending on what. And it was like, And I'm glad we didn't, because who knows what would have happened. In this particular article, though, that we have linked to, it talks about how belief fuels talismans, right?
Yeah.
And basically how to actually make a talisman. And they kind of break it down saying our talismans give us power and protection to remind us of what we value.
Yeah.
But it's the belief and the idea behind it, and what you put into it is for what its actual use is. And a talisman doesn't have to be an expensive piece of rock.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it could be like a 4-leaf clover, whatever you put into it. It can be, maybe it's a lucky silver piece, like some money that somebody's given you. Maybe it's a birthday quarter, like it's your birthday in 1970, and you get handed a nice little silver quarter from your grandpa. That could be your talisman. I mean, it could be like your rabbit's foots.
Mine used to be my medical tag.
Yeah, dog tag, medical tag. Your canine's rabies. What did I say? Like a rabies tag.
Yeah.
So, I'd see, and with this, all right. A lot of people don't, I think, put the same amount of stock into this stuff as I do. Mm-hmm. Because I always carried what I consider to be a talisman forever. And you don't have to make one. I mean, you could create it, almost like a sigil. You can create a talisman out of a sigil. And a sigil is a symbol. Mm-hmm. It's your symbol that you create for a certain thing. And I used to basically draw a sigil on my left inner foot. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? Where your arch is, the inner side of your foot?
Your arch. I just call it my insole.
I'm sure there's some sort of fancy podiatrist name for it. Anyway, and I used to create that sigil, and I did that for years and years and years, till finally as soon as I could, I got a tattoo.
Okay.
And that was my thing, and I've had it ever since, and I always have some degree of it. And that's something that I did. And for me, it seemed to work. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. I mean, you can create these things, you can make them, you can do all sorts of things. You can choose the correct symbology for you that's used to build the power of what you think this thing is supposed to do. Everything from the Seal of Solomon. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Which is what? We call it the Star of David, but it's basically the Seal of Solomon. Ganesha, however you say it. Ankhs are big.
Yeah. If you go out east, areas like Japan or China, you can actually see little tiny market booths that sell nothing but little protective talismans. Like when my friends Eric and Omi, when they went back to Japan for a little bit, they brought me back a talisman for safe driving. And it's just like, you just get it in the little market booths, and there's hundreds of them. You just buy it. And it'll have like some hell money, a protective coin, and a little dangly thing on it. And you just put that in your car. And
you know what the safe terminology for all that stuff is, right?
What?
Good luck charms. Get you a little good luck charm. It's kind of predicated on the same idea.
But but they go so far like out there where it was like specifically for safe road conditions, So I appreciated that,
Yeah.
But
it's like the patron saints.
Yeah.
With little medallions you wear, like Michael and I don't know. I'm not Catholic, so and there's a bunch of them, right? That people use. So I just thought it was kind of interesting.
But
that you could pick something as far as the symbol that you think is like the little evil eye thing. There's a whole tree with the evil eye things that you make on this website.
Really?
Yeah, it's the picture that's in there.
Okay.
And it's funny because you just bought an evil eye mug.
Yes, I did, from Rising Moon Ceramics.
I wasn't thinking you were going to plug them, but
and they've come out with a whole line of little mushroom things, little gnomes. There's some evil eye stuff. I'm probably going to get a couple other little evil eye things that she's made, but because I like that symbol, and evil eye translates across cultures. Indigenous culture has evil eye, Mediterranean culture, even some Pacific Islander cultures have their version of evil eye.
Illuminati has evil eye.
Okay, but so I like that one. But if I wanted to take something that she recently made that was evil eye, there's this website that we've provided gives you some step-by-step stuff, like choose an object, like a pendant, a ring, a bead, a protective symbol, and then goes on to explain how to turn it into your own personal amulet. Because you can't just, in this article's instance, it doesn't say you can just buy something and now it's your amulet. You have to put some intention behind it,
right?
Like concentration, meditation, maybe some magic of yourself.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff wears off.
True.
And also wears on, which means that maybe you got some store-bought trinket that your grandma bought 50 years ago who's worn it every single day for 50 years, and then she gives it to you.
Yeah.
It used to be store-bought, but now it's got some juice to it. And it's like even, I believe this to a certain degree with some cars. Not all cars, but some cars have a soul.
Yeah.
And when your butt is in that seat,
true.
right, and all the emotions and everything, it's almost like stone tape theory, but it's really for cars. And it's like your car has a soul.
Car tape theory.
Well, and it's really VWs. And there was a book, it was called Heat. What was it called? I can't remember the name. It was the John Muir book where he's a hippie dude. I think it's Muir. Anyway, he's like a hippie guy, and he has this sort of hippie prologue in the book where he talks about, the zen of owning a Volkswagen. And a lot of people don't understand it, but if you own an air-cooled Volkswagen and you bought this, it's the how-to guide for basically Volkswagens. Everybody buys it. It's kind of a cartoony style book. Because it came out in the 60s, and it has all sorts of little Zen sayings and stuff like, I can't remember half of them now, but it's the foreword's great where it's like
the Zen and the Art of Bug Repair.
No.
Okay.
No, it's just called the VW manual, and it'll show a picture, and it looks all 60s and psychedelics. Looks like a Grateful Dead cover album. A Grateful Dead cover of the Grateful Dead album is what it looks like.
Mm.
But anyway, it talks about, you should put care and love into your car because it cares and loves you and all this crazy stuff. And the reason being is that you will put more of yourself into the care and feeding of that air-cooled Volkswagen, a Doodlebug, a Volkswagen Bug, than any other car, because you're going to be fixing that piece of crap all the time. And so you generate a love for it, much like people like old boats and old things like that, old boats and really old cars and old airplanes and stuff. They put so much of themselves into it that it gets imbibed with your horsepower, and you might as well give it good thoughts and feelings because you rely on it for whatever transportation you're trying to accomplish.
How to keep your Volkswagen alive.
For the complete idiot. There
a
you go.
manual of step-by-step procedures for the complete, spelled incorrectly, idiot, by John Muir, 1969.
Actually, it was spelled British.
Well, that these people are claiming.
Yeah, well, no, it's not wrong, but yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's definitely in the covers there. But, yeah, I mean, but we're talking about talismans, and technically talisman, one of the key components is it's something you wear.
Right, or you put it in a vehicle to protect you. And you're in the vehicle, so then you're in your own.
Okay.
I know you disagree, but it doesn't matter if you disagree. It's what I believe when it comes to talismans and amulets.
So...
Right?
We're going to get back onto something that people can wear or put inside a vehicle, because we're not going to encourage people to buy a Volkswagen.
Well, that's don't denigrate my point. Because my point is that it can be the same thing. It's really about intention, what you put into it. It could be a baseball card. It could be a penny. It could be a nickel.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I have stuff that I keep in my wallet that's like,
Yeah. It's your own Horcrux.
But I call them charms. I don't call them talismans or amulets. So
what's the difference, though? This is the point I'm trying to make. You can call it whatever you want, right? They all kind of mean the same thing. It's like, are you mixing, Japanese influence with Eastern European influence, with Western European influence, with colonial America influence, with Spanish influence? I don't like
providing broad strokes for something when in theory, a talisman and an amulet are things that are worn or can be installed, I guess, inside a vehicle. I'll give that, or inside a home. But I do think there is a difference, like mojo bags, which are wearable, but they are a mojo bag, or a charm, and I just feel that way. So I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, there can be, sure. But I mean, how do you find that sort of thing? It sort of depends on what you're looking for and how you want to find it. What's its purpose?
I can wear a talisman every day, but if I don't have pockets on my capri pants, I can't necessarily wear a charm.
No, but you can get a tattoo. And what is that really? It's power. It's power and protection. One's to give you power and one's to give you protection. I mean, because you can't carry around like a lawn ornament with you, sort of a thing. So it really depends on what you're looking for.
I could be a log lady when I get older. I'll just carry around a log.
No, you're going to carry around a gnome or something weird like that, a mushroom.
A mushroom.
Just carry around a gross mushroom. Yuck. So, I mean, okay, so you've got all these different things and different types of things that you can create. So, like Omi's saying, it's hard to differentiate and specify what you want to do. So it really sort of depends on how you want to do it and which way you're going to take it. Are you an old school, like, gypsy type person and has a way of doing things? Mm-hmm. Or Romani, or whatever you want to call it?
Romani?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Or are you an Appalachian witch or just what we call a grandma?
Yeah.
That has certain ways of doing things. Are you colonial England, or fairy folk and how to have things blessed a certain way? I mean, it really sort of depends. I mean, even the Aborigines have things for stuff like this. So it sort of depends on how you want to do it and what it means to you. And there's Japanese do it differently. And talismans today can be anything.
Like there's a big, there's a big divide because in the Southwest, quite a few different groups of people will use a skull or bones as amulets or talismans to ward against things or for protection.
Right.
Certain indigenous cultures would wear bones as a part of a talisman to draw the strength of that particular animal into their own power.
Or enemy.
True. With enemies, that's another tangent into Pacific Islander traditions as well.
Or African.
But where was I going?
You were going down the road, man.
But you take those examples like skulls and bones, which are very sacred with certain cultures, even just going past the Mississippi. You come over here, North Carolina, and it's a scary thing. So having that skull tattoo or a skull keychain or a little skull bracelet, it's, even though your intention is one thing, it may come off as something else to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, you can run down to Louisiana and see that too.
Yeah, you know.
What's scary in Mississippi is not scary at all in Louisiana. As I'm sitting there rocking a big skull T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And really what it boils down to is it's all how you interpret it and what you want it to do.
Yeah.
A talisman provides the wearer with confidence, and this coupled with belief ensures that you will have high expectations and will do whatever is necessary to ensure success.
Yeah.
That is a bland statement. I mean, your talisman can be macaroni art from a child. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's just, it all depends on the intent behind it and what you're doing with it and how much you actually believe.
Yeah.
Now, there are some things you can do to really kick it up a notch if you want to get all witchcrafty.
And it doesn't even have to, it may not be considered witchcrafty. It just might be what you do.
Well, yeah, but see, some people will look at that and go, oh, well, unless I'm doing some sort of sacred thing, it doesn't count. It's not real.
Yeah. And it doesn't, I talked to somebody today who, when they get new items that they use for their own meditation or their own art even, they'll smudge it before it comes into the house. Or if it's something they incorporate into their jewelry, they'll smudge it. Now, this person isn't necessarily a witch, but it's just a good practice. They smudge it, they cleanse it, just before bringing it into their life.
And I mean, yeah, I think you should definitely do that with stuff you buy from a thrift store, especially if it's antique or if you think it's antiques. You should probably do that for sure.
Yeah, and then there's like certain people where if they get a piece of jewelry, you know, which may be a talisman or an amulet or just a piece of jewelry, they'll smudge it, they'll cleanse it, they'll go through all the cleansing because they're getting a piece of jewelry from somebody else. You don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We were watching a long time ago. We were watching whatever show it is with Ozzy Osbourne, Sharon Osbourne, and Jack Osbourne, where they look and react to clips. Mm-hmm. And they actually brought up the idea of antiques and jewelry being haunted because there was a thrift store or what do they call it? No, they don't call them thrift stores in England. They call them something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they asked if she would buy jewelry from a thrift store, and she was like, no.
Yeah.
Because, you know, somebody wore that forever, and their intent, and you don't know what the intention is, and you don't know, you know, if they've had bad luck or whatever. So she didn't want it, unless it was family. If she knew who they were and they were family, she was okay with it because family makes it probably better for you versus wearing a stranger's thing.
Wearing a stranger's luck.
Yeah, or essence, because she's like, you know, you wear it for so long, and it's such an intensely personal thing.
Yeah.
You know, and she said, they asked her, well, what if it was really expensive or whatever? She's like, I'd melt it down and then have it made into something I want, you know. So I thought it was pretty funny.
But it was a pretty intelligent answer, too. I was like, she just definitely thought about this.
Yeah, so if you go to magicalspot.com, and magical is magic with K-A-L, there's a guide to basically make a talisman for protection in 7 steps.
Yeah. And
it's like in this article, I'll show you how to make a talisman for protection in 7 easy steps, right? And this is something I thought was pretty interesting to put in here, because of energy vampires. And we've talked about energy vampires off and on. And I would be honest, there is a ton of energy vampires. If you've ever worked in the corporate field, in a corporate building or in an office building full of people, you will have run into an energy vampire. They are people they just suck the life out of you. Sometimes it's by intention. Sometimes it's just by the mere presence of them being next to you, just sucking your soul away.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you watch that show, What We Do in the Shadows, there's a vampire in there, and he's an energy vampire, and he just looks like a regular dude, but he just makes everything so terrible, and he just feeds off that energy that's produced. Like, say, if you're in a board meeting, and you've been in there for 40 minutes, and lunch is coming up in 5 minutes, and they go, is there anything else before we break for lunch? This will be the dude who asked the same question that was asked in the very beginning, wanting it explained again. Thereby taking 15 more minutes when you should have been eating lunch and you're starving to death. And there's people like this exist. And I just like those people.
So yesterday, after we ran some errands, Greg and me went to the bead store, and I was looking for something very specific to fight against an energy vampire. Basically a toxicity vampire.
Yeah.
And I got very mad because energy vampire talismans, amulets, protection, beads, what have you, are very specific. And
yeah,
you can
unfortunately.
You can kind of pick up some generic stuff, like a good combination of rose quartz, hematite, obsidian, and carnelian. That is a good protection for somebody who is an empath, if you just had a bracelet of that against an energy vampire. But if it seems to be directed, there are some other stones and other things you can do. And I was specifically on a mission for garnet. And I did not find the type of garnet I wanted at the bead shop yesterday. So I was a bit disappointed.
Wow.
Because I feel very strongly that garnet would help me with the energy and toxicity vampires I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah.
So the best I could do today was wear my lucky amethyst ring.
You know what you could do?
What?
And this is in accordance with the prophet Mike Tyson.
Okay.
And he basically, he has this is sort of a derivative of something he said in the past. You can fix an energy vampire because everybody can be an energy vampire until you punch them in the mouth. He's basically saying, everybody's a tough guy until you punch them in the mouth. And then people jumped on that and said, well, more people need more punches in the mouth. Like, you wouldn't be saying this if you can get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
It sort of resets your clock, right?
Yeah.
So maybe next time you should just punch them in the face. Punch them in the mouth.
I'm not punching people in the face in public situations.
Smack them in the face.
No.
All right.
No, not going to do that.
Well,
I'll just wear a bracelet and hope for the best. Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, you can make a guide, talisman in 7 easy steps, a little protection amulet, talisman, however you want to do it. Just some spiritual cleansing. And it tells you step by step how to create your own. Yeah. And it basically says it is essential to understand that no object is magical in itself, but becomes so once we put energy into it. Which kind of makes sense. And then they talk about we're all made of energy. And it's like, yeah, we get all that stuff. And so we're just kind of going to go through it real quick. If you want to do it yourself, that's purely on you. There's a link in the show notes as everything we talk about in the podcast. There's a link to, right? Choose your object. Could be a pendant, ring, bracelet, whatever you want, right? Could be a special stone, whatever it winds up being, right? So in a circle on your altar. So if you don't have an altar, then you got to figure that out. So this is something that either you're ready to do or not do, right? Mm-hmm. Put a handful of salt or sand representing the earth, an incense stick, which represents the air, a candle, a cup of water representing the elements of fire and water, respectively. And then it talks about basically concentrating, relaxing, so that you can invoke the elements the way you need to and imbibe your magic into what it is. And then you can kind of go on from there. I'm not going to do the rest of it. So if you want to do it yourself, you can certainly do it. It looks pretty easy. And they also talk about some really common symbols that you can use to have meaning and purpose so that maybe you can just sort of cliff notes your talisman.
Yeah. And just
like
always.
Like Eye of Horus,
Yeah.
Hamsa Pentacle, Ankh, that sort of thing.
And be kind of, these are all suggestions. So use common sense and precaution before you do some of these things. Like the whole thing that we're not going to go over, like the breakdown of how to, cleanse, bless, and set up these amulets or talismans for your success. If you're dealing with like a paper talisman, don't hold it directly over top of candle flame. Maybe pass the candle under it once,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
I mean, you kind of have to give this, if you want it to work at all, the seriousness that it deserves. And we're not going to go through and talk about it step by step. So if you want to do it yourself, you got to put some work into it, because the more effort you put into it and the more everything you put into this, the better it's going to be and hopefully work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't be surprised if you get something or magically make it work and you have some sort of weird activities happen or paranormal activities.
Yeah.
Or if you've got one from somebody who maybe passed it on to you for whatever reason because they think you need it and they have way more powerful horsepower than you, don't be surprised if things sort of occur that you've never had experience in.
Yeah.
So then you're like, whoa. It's like, yeah. So, yeah.
I had a conversation today with somebody about making intention-based jewelry where, you put that intent behind it while you're making the jewelry.
Yep.
So while you're making the talisman, even though it's not for yourself, you're making it for somebody else, to always have that intention just in the process of making that necklace, that bracelet, that pendant, whatever.
That furniture.
Sure. Yeah.
That boat.
Yeah.
That sculpture. That art. Yeah. So some people would say it's, it's just hooey, but like, wait a minute. You can tell the difference when somebody really puts love and meaning into something versus not.
So, and getting back to the jewelry for the talismans and amulets, so there are places and people who make stuff with that intention. So what?
You keep going back to it.
Yes.
I'm saying the same thing. You know what that means?
You're not saying
your amulet will disappear. You know what that means?
What?
It wasn't for you.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, anything can be. It doesn't have to be jewelry. It has to be something that can be sustaining, right? And last.
I'm saying it for the subject of this podcast episode, amulets and talismans. That is jewelry. So.
Not always. It's not. It's wide open. That's the whole point. I mean, you can use something as a talisman. You can use something as an amulet. You can put a lucky 4-leaf clover and a piece of tape and hang it around your neck. This is the problem with all of this stuff. Because people believe a certain way, and they're like, this is the only way this is going to work. And then when you show them something different, they're like, well, that's not true. That's not how it works at all. And it's really the same thing.
Okay, baby witch.
You can call me whatever you want. Baby witch. I am Mr.
TikTok baby
Mr.
witch.
Baby Witch to you. No, I mean, it's just like, unless your sword is made in the furnace of whatever, it doesn't have any power. Come on, man.
Like I said, my medical tag is not, it was a keychain. So it was a wearable. I did consider that a lucky charm.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And when I wore it around my neck, did I consider it an amulet or talisman? Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. But a charm bag or a boat are not an amulet or a talisman.
I think you're being entirely too literal in what I'm trying to say, which usually happens when you're aggravated with me. You take things absolutely literal. It's like, I go back to the I'll take the trash out in 2-minute argument. Where when you're aggravated, you're like, it's been 2 minutes and the trash is still here.
It's Wednesday, my dudes.
Guess what? Gotta go. All right. So anyway, move back into the podcast. The whole entire point is that you can make one of these if you want. You can cleanse it. You can figure out what you got to do to make it happen. But it's really about your belief and your intent. Now, things that are substantial and that are going to last longer are probably better to make them out of, like a necklace or something. I mean, you can't take a bag of Cheez-Its and make them a protection thing, especially when you're around somebody who's going to eat them. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it has to mean something. Now, if you're trying to do something a little bit different, if you've got the spiritual horsepower, you can use, bread, right? And that way, and the recipe behind the bread becomes the thing, and you can basically protect your entire culture by showing them how to eat something. It's knowledge-based. Look at me.
I can't.
See, because here's the thing. Your horsepower is one way. My horsepower is another. Who's to say mine's wrong? No. You say it's wrong, but wrong according to who? Because at the end of the day, with everything, whether it's Bigfoots, ghosts, UFOs, right, witchcraft, nobody can prove it's real. Nobody can prove it's real.
Okay.
And that's the aggravating part. You know what I mean?
No, you're the.
What's the difference between witchcraft and religion?
There isn't.
Exactly.
Witchcraft is a religion.
So, is it? According to who? It's all how you believe. Speaking of believe, I believe I am done talking about this ambulance and stuff, so let's move into some local animal weirdness. Quit saying I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. That, what is it if you're, that's misogynistic. That's right. Misogynistically speaking, I'm right, you're wrong.
Well, actually.
No, it's like, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Per my last podcast.
Yeah. In my last email, down at the bottom. If you really want to anger people, just set your email text to white and send them a scathing email with white font. And they open it up and they don't say anything. I didn't get your last email. It was blank. It's like 2 reasons why you didn't see it. Number one, you don't know how, like the secret messages it used to write with like lemon oil or whatever, lemon juice. Mm-hmm. And you're an idiot. Those are my favorites. Or you could be really cool and find out if like maybe somebody you work with, like if they set all their important emails to a font or a color, then what you do is you set your entire email to that font and color.
Yeah.
And then they just keep getting it over and over again. And so I didn't see it. Like, you sure it's right there, bro? Send them all white text. So, Omi's put a link in here all of a sudden. It says recommended stones for protection from baddies.
Yes.
With a hairy eyeball. The picture is a hairy eyeball. You should check it out. Go ahead and explain in great and agonizing detail.
Which one did I pick? Hold on.
It's a link. It says the best crystals for energy.
Oh, Crystal Cavern. Yeah. So they have a list of recommended stones, primarily for combating negativity and energy vampires and stuff like that. I like this list a little more because it's a bit more in depth about the different stones. I don't know. I just like this one more. We've seen other sites that go very generic, like I was saying during a few minutes ago, rose quartz, obsidian, hematite, and carnelian.
Yeah.
That's a great combination for empaths. Will it work for you in your specific situation? Maybe. My specific situation, I know I definitely need some garnet, and I possibly need some other stuff. So this link will go over some examples for different stones you can incorporate into making your own talisman or amulet, or if you just want to make something simple, like a simple talisman bracelet.
I'm a modern guy. I use zirconium.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not real, right? You know that's a engineered crystal.
Lab-created stone.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what goes with lab-created stone?
Cell-cultivated meat.
That's right.
So
Coming soon. We're going to grow our own.
no, we're not. We have 2 mushroom kits.
Look, man,
sitting
that
in the
and mushroom
garage.
leather. That's how we're going to get. That's what we're going to do. We're going to grow our own lab-cultivated meat and put it in a mushroom leather box.
Since it can't grow its own hide.
That's right.
We're going to give it
And we're gonna
mushroom
send it.
leather.
Mushroom leather in a little hermetically sealed box, and we're going to send it. It's going to be great. You can buy it. $2.95.
I just pictured cell-cultivated meat wrapped in mushroom leather in the yard, and we're going to call it free range.
Yes. Free range. Non-genetically modified.
I don't want dinner now.
What?
That just
look,
turns my stomach.
let me tell you a little story about it's going to be dinner time when we get done with this podcast.
Okay.
You know what tonight's dinner is going to be?
What?
You got plenty of time to think about it.
Oh, no, I don't. This
Because I don't know.
podcast is going on forever then.
Well, it's only been going on for an hour. So speaking of weird stuff with animals, like we've been talking about in the past 3 episodes.
So
this is, excuse me,
okay.
I was taking a cleansing breath. I was. And then you just
Take another.
here we go.
Take another.
So my phone somehow or another is connected to our podcasting equipment. We've been making lots of trips to the hospital back and forth. This is the testing time of year for me, evidently, right? And, get some tests and stuff like that, and things look pretty clean. I'm like, hey, this is great. So we leave, and part of, leaving from these appointments that we've been doing, and we decide to go get a healthy lunch, which is Taco Bell. I know it's not healthy, but it's Taco Bell, right? So it's along the way, it's convenient. So as we were going to Taco Bell, what did you see?
A big old bear.
Big giant black bear. Had to weigh at least over 350 pounds. It was huge because I seen it from far off and was like, that is the biggest dog I've ever seen. Because it was so far out there because, it was a little black dot and it got bigger and bigger. I'm like, holy crap. And so I slowed down and put the hazard lights on, which is, what all make it more dangerous, right? Just like these idiots that are rubbernecking. That's what I was doing. Like, here we go. And then you took some amazing pictures and video of this bear.
Yeah.
Who was huge.
Yeah.
He was as big as the space between the railroad tracks from like where the gravel starts to the gravel ends with the track in the middle. It was big. He was a big bear.
Yeah.
Or she. Who knows?
But it was a really big bear.
Broad daylight.
Yeah.
Like 5 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever it was.
Actually.
4:09. Anyway, it was in the afternoon. It doesn't get dark here until like 9:30.
Yeah.
And this bear was right out in broad daylight. I thought he was eating something. You said he was yelling.
5:10 p.m.
There you go.
So he was kind of like half snarling or like making a face because I guess he had walked across traffic. And he kept turning around and looking at the big giant metal things that were,
He's probably just throwing shade at him.
And he was just, rawr, and just some grumbles.
How do you...
Rawr.
Oh, right.
Yes. Just grumbling and just making bear faces. And then just tucked off into the woods. So.
Yeah, he didn't run off.
Yeah.
No, he walked.
He walked. He did.
He sauntered. He was like, you want some of this?
Yeah.
I am a big-ass bear.
So, not afraid at all. 5:10 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
People around us also kind of slowed down and rubbernecked. I mean, it was...
And the one person that was behind us, they missed the entire spectacle and sped off around all quick and shot me evil looks, at which point I don't care. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
So.
But, a few weeks ago, we had a bear walk through our valley.
Yep.
Shared some of that. And then we got some comments on the video I posted. I put a link to the video in the show notes for this episode, but we got a couple of comments that someone had spotted a bobcat in the middle of the day up Gateway Mountain here in North Carolina, which is a private, fancy community. And then they caught a bear running across the road right there at the light by our local mailing service. And that's in downtown area.
Yeah.
Like, there's an ice cream shop. And
there's like a Pizza Hut and a Domino's down there.
And
it's
a
not
realtor,
far.
you know, there's a realtor.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess a bunch of deer ran across the street at some place called Dove's Grocery, which is hard to explain, but basically it's like a multi-lane small road. But
it's also in town.
Yeah. And so we've had this uptick in all these things. And somebody I ran into today, she was like, yeah, we just saw a bear ourselves coming down from Spruce Pine as we were crossing the Dollar General. And I'm like, the bear was going to Dollar General? Yep.
Well, that's to be fair, that's the only place you can go around here if you live in the middle of nowhere. Actually, it's the only place you can go anywhere. If you live in the middle of anywhere or nowhere at all, there's always a Dollar General.
Yeah.
But the point is that as far as I know, and I'm not one of these Farmer's Almanac guys, this is unusual for this time of year. Usually happens a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
Or earlier in the year, not now.
And I went ahead, before the podcast started, I started doing some Google searches about the increase in bears, because for years now, or past couple of years, people have been talking about Asheville having, we had that bear downtown last year in Asheville, North Carolina, where it was walking around right where our friend owns a bar, and Asheville, it's getting so bad that it's an everyday
if you have family who grew up here in this area locally, they'll tell you that they're no longer allowed to hunt bears anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why people hunted bears around here.
Yeah.
It's because there's lots of bears. Because not too far from Asheville, really, if you look at it geographically, you also have Tennessee, which had lots of bear activity and lots of bear unwanted bear activity. And there was even bear sighting up on the parkway right by the VA hospital at the Folk Center. There was bears there too. So the point is that either something's going on or something's going to happen when it comes to these bears, because they don't hunt them anymore. They don't take care of the population.
Yeah.
And what else is, of course, always happening is human encroachment, right?
Yeah, and Google was showing this whole thing when I was doing my Google search, and it was like, apparently in the past few days there was a bear sighting in Cape Cod. Like, there was a bear downtown in Cape Cod. So the newspaper for up there had to do an article, bear sighting, what to do if you see a bear.
Yeah.
Because it's not common there.
Yeah.
And I saw similar posts and similar articles for other places, like more metropolitan, more developed areas. It's like, what do you do if you see a bear? So it's starting to be a more common thing. And to go back to your question, yes, there's possibly this overpopulation, but either something's happening to drive these bears in, maybe weather or some sort of phenomenon, or is this a new normal? I think
it's a new normal because bears aren't scared of getting shot. Animals, they have a tendency to pass information along to their young.
Yeah.
And if they can somehow or another, subconsciously or whatever, pass along that humans are bad and stay away, they're not going to stay away.
Yeah.
They'll know, I'll just do the usual animal thing and keep my distance, and I can keep doing what I want.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas it goes back to the Mike Tyson thing. Every bear's brave until you punch him in the face, right?
Yeah.
So but the problem with this is that we have such a sort of a stupid society going on where we got people, being attacked by bison, and they're not necessarily being attacked by bison. They're just where the bison don't want you to be, and you keep egging them on, taking pictures of them or whatever.
Touching them.
Yeah, you're running up to them and stuff, and then are genuinely shocked when this bison says, "I don't think so," and yeets you over the road, right?
Yeah.
People think they can just run up and take pictures, and it's like a bison or a bear, even a squirrel, does not care if you get them in the wrong. If they're in the wrong sort of mood or whatever, they're going to get you.
Well, okay, so it's like Shark Week or whatever now, or around now, and there's a silly post, like it turned into a meme because the punchline is, we have no idea if this person was serious, and it was one of those shark websites that posted the fact that annually cows kill more tourists and people than sharks do. And a person replied right under it, amazing that cows can kill sharks. It was like, cows kill more people than sharks.
It's like, whoa.
And it was like, amazing that a cow can even reach a shark.
Yeah. Well, I do think that some parts of this with the sharks, just in general, is whenever you have like an El Nino, and the Gulf Stream changes and it shifts and becomes closer to the shore on the U.S., you get more shark activity type stuff.
But if you think about it, though, like cows do kill more people than sharks. And these city slickers and tourists, they're going out and they're like, oh, it's just a cow when they go and mess with a bison or a buffalo.
Yeah, I paid $75 to get in this park. I'm going to take me a picture.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm like, okay, first off, that is not a cow. Second, I have run away from the cows in our neighborhood because they have charged.
I mean, just it's a problem of scale.
Like,
a cow may be dumb, but when he's dumb and 1,000 pounds, he's dangerous.
Yeah, and these people are like, oh, it's just a fluffy cow.
Even these stupid, goats. Sometimes
I had a goat headbutt the back of my knee, and I friggin' walked funny for 2 days.
Yeah. Well, that's because you didn't stomp him with your steel-toed boots.
I'm not gonna do that.
I think maybe if you give him a good, thunking, maybe he'll leave you alone. Well, a lot of them are, bucking you because they want the stupid 25-cent food that you're trying to give them. They're not dumb; they know what's up.
Yeah.
Right? They got like dual pupils or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, man, I know where to get food." So
he headbutted me because I had birthday cake. And
I would too. Cake's a different animal altogether. So speaking of animals, so we've been talking about all these weird animal things that are occurring, and it seems like they're just even more prevalent now. Mm-hmm. And is this going to sort of ramp up? Is this going to become a thing?
Yeah.
I mean, we had whales that are doing their thing, attacking stuff or playing. We don't really know exactly what's going on, but it seems like that's maybe died off. And then every year around this time with tourists, you get bison attacking people, but they're really not attacking. I think bison are more like defending themselves from dummies.
Yeah.
What else? We got lots of bears around here. They were shutting off areas around where we live that are in proximity.
2 different gator attacks.
Yeah. So either people are real dumb or something's going on, or just the news is reporting it because it's popular. But either way, if you're out there and you see a wild, weird animal, you should probably stay away from it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a couple minutes about some creepy Appalachian Trail stories, maybe 1 or 2 before we go and wrap up the podcast. Because, I think we've been going long enough to know it's almost time to eat something.
Yeah.
A little dinner time, because that's what we do. We like to talk about stuff in the podcast and then be hungry and then eat a delicious dinner.
Okay.
So I'm trying to find, there was one story I wanted to talk about, but I can't seem to find it now. This is on ranker.com, so I'm sure every story in here is completely 100% accurate. And it's basically like 15 stories about the Appalachian Trail.
They probably stole off Reddit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Where is it? Okay, so a long time ago, we had sort of mentioned the idea of the Appalachian Trail and Blue Ridge Parkway and stuff like that, and posing the question, how many serial killers sort of hang out and do the Appalachian Trail or the Blue Ridge Parkway or somewhere where you can have access to the Appalachian Trail, where you can, and the idea that since you don't hear a lot about murders and things like that occurring, and murders happen everywhere, not saying one place is more than the other, but since you never hear about it, why don't you ever hear about it? Because if you look at the odds, the odds are in favor of more unfortunate murders occurring in these places than you would be led to believe. And if you watch the news, you never hear anything about it.
Yeah.
And then we started looking one time, it's like through digging around through different sources. I think it's like 5 or 6 podcasts back. We found at least 26 in the year and didn't hear any of them on the news.
Yeah.
And so this is a story I like. It's called the Appalachian Trail Slayer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's just a quick blurb, but it says, reported crimes is rare on the Appalachian Trail, which makes the story of Randall Lee Smith even more frightening. Back in the 80s, Smith pleaded guilty to murdering 2 hikers on the trail. He admitted to befriending them and spending time with them on the trail. Then in the middle of the night, he shot one of them and then stabbed the other.
Oh.
He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but ended up only serving half his sentence. Once he got out, he tried to do the same thing. So this time he befriended 2 fishermen on the trail and tried to kill them both. He shot them, but they both survived. And then Smith tried to flee the scene in a pickup truck, but crashed and then succumbed to his injuries a few days later.
Oh, man. Okay.
Don't you think that's kind of serial killeristic behavior?
Yeah, and then...
he got out of jail and said, I'm going to do this again.
Yeah.
Is it creepy?
It is.
Thumbs up?
It is. And it's funny because way earlier in this long list, there was this one about taken by mysterious men. a guy hiking along a trail, underwent an awful experience. He noticed a bright light coming from the forest next to him while he was hiking. Not wanting to bother anyone, he didn't investigate, but went ahead and set up camp close by. He awoke in the middle of the night to find a man standing over his hammock. Startled, the man quickly fled and yelled to unseen people that the hiker was awake. The hiker was terrified, quickly packed up, and put as much distance as possible between him and whoever was out there. A few days later of nonstop hiking, the hiker finally tried to just relax and just, but that night he was trying to sleep in his hammock when suddenly he was cut down, wrapped up, and dragged away. He was beaten mercilessly while the people shouted at one another, and they were preparing possibly to take him away. The hiker was able to get to his knife, cut the hammock, and escape. He made it back to civilization, but the police were unable to make any progress on who attempted to kidnap him. I'm like, that was in 1998.
So. Oh, and how many of these things have occurred and nobody said anything at all?
Yeah.
Where, they get, because there's a couple different places where they say that no matter what time of year or when you go through on these sections of Appalachian Trail, that you will always be followed.
Yeah.
And you will always know that somebody is behind you, whether you see him or see him a little bit like in the corner of your eye or whatever, you will always be followed. Yeah. So, it just seems like if there's any place where something like that could occur, it would be in a desolate area because, there's people everywhere, right? I think it would be hard to do something like that and have it go unnoticed.
Yeah.
But somewhere like the Appalachian Trail, especially in some of the remote sections, I'm sure stuff, maybe it's all about timing or whatever. Maybe you're there at the wrong place, wrong time, but it has to have occurred more.
Yeah.
Because if they did, I think that if we actually knew for real, like with the incidents and reported, and it could account for the unreported stuff that happens on it, I'm sure it's probably a lot worse. But I will say, if I'm ever out there on the Appalachian Trail,
yeah,
I'm going to be equipped with the ability to make very loud noises.
Okay. Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if something tries to get me, I can make a loud boom effect. Like many times. Okay. And I'm not going to be one of these guys like, well, this spork weighs 0.25 ounces more because, I'm going to be armed. Because I'm afraid of bears and other stuff or snakes. I'm actually more scared of ticks, but I just think that if it's obvious that you are equipped and prepared, that you would be messed with less.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I don't know. There's places that we've gone in the past where we've been okay, but then we see one or two people and we're like, okay, we really, these people don't match the type of people that should be cruising around out there.
Okay.
Let me try to clarify this before somebody thinks I'm talking differently than what they actually think. No. Yeah. Okay, so there's places you go where it's like, okay, this is a day hike type thing. This is, an area where you can go walk around and check stuff out. It's touristy type stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're dressed appropriately for it.
Yeah.
And then you see people that are like, where did these people come from?
Okay.
They don't look like they're there to see the stuff that you're there to see. They look like they're there to see other stuff. Mm-mm. Like maybe see what they got, what's available in your car or what you got. They're not there to enjoy. And it's obvious they're not there to enjoy. They're there to see what they can get. We've seen them a couple times where it's like, this doesn't make sense. Why are you out here like this? Because, them hills have eyes, Omi.
In New Mexico, one of the trails I used to hike a lot was the La Luz Trail, and there was a rash of burglaries from the trailhead. And to counter part of what you were saying, the rangers were keeping an eye out for somebody who looked like by the items that were being stolen out of the vehicles, they assumed it must be somebody who was homeless or without a home. So the rangers were keeping their eye out for that type of person. And what they didn't realize was it was somebody who was wearing a mountain biking outfit.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I like how you call somebody's sport an outfit.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a mountain bike person that's like,
oh yeah,
how dare ye with their
But-
padded spandex pants.
This person blended in, had a big heavy wrench with them. That their excuse was, I'm using this to repair my bike. Oh, it's just over there.
Yeah.
But we use that wrench to break the windows in, steal the stuff, and, keep going.
I'm more worried about the feral people who were there too. Oh, yeah, this wrench is so I can eat you.
Yeah, so.
Because, the idea of feral people is a thing.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time. And I don't think it's just made up.
So.
I think there's more to it. But, I mean, would you go to a park if it was like, hey, just be aware there's rattlesnakes, right? The plague, other poisonous animals, bears, mountain lions. And then they got a picture of a hairy-looking human and feral peoples. I mean, would you go? I'd be like,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean,
We're not smart.
We weren't smart. We decided to go to a place that translated to Dark Wolf Canyon.
Yeah, Diablo Canyon. Yeah, that was a pretty sketchy place. But I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'm looking too far into it. But I know there's more stuff that goes on than gets reported.
It was Diablo Lobo. So, because I think because literally the translation, because I wrote it down.
Devil Wolf Canyon?
It was like Dark Wolf Canyon. So, yeah.
Well, evidently it was freaking close.
Yeah, we didn't realize that. No. And not because of wolves, because of mountain lions.
Yeah. Yeah, that place you definitely felt like you were being watched.
Yeah.
You probably were. But anyway, so I think we're going to go ahead and take a second to wrap up the podcast, and we do hope that you'll join us next time when we talk about more aggravating stuff. Mm-hmm. So there you go. You're like, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
let me adjust myself.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you do want to have a larger, expounded conversation about talismans or amulets, be sure to join our Facebook group. We'll be happy to chat and even provide some insight or our opinions or what have you. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, all those places. Call the toll-free number if you'd like to leave a message or some feedback or a show idea, or you can always email us contact@creepgeeks.com.
Yes. So anyway, here's the deal. If you're going out in the woods and you see some weird stuff, you should tell us.
Yeah.
After you run away, right? And just keep in mind it's really hot. It's been super hot.
Even NC Wildlife Commission had to post on all their social media, drink water if you're going outside today.
Yes.
They didn't even bother with a picture. They were like, people, please drink some water.
Yeah. Drink waters.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I don't know, man. It's just it just seems like things with the weather have been a little crazy. It seems like everything that's happening now should have happened a couple months ago for whatever reason. I don't know. It's been very hot. But yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about the CreepGeeks podcast, just let us know. We do appreciate the interaction. If you have any ideas of things that we should be talking about, let us know as well. If you just want to say hello, you can do that. We do have Patreon, and you can kind of jump over there and see some of the stuff that we try to talk about. But anyway, do appreciate you taking time to listen. So see you later. Take it easy. Bicycle.
Bye.